We'll now discuss about OpenFrame security TACF. In mainframe, TACF, ACF2 and Top Secret are most commonly used security product that does the resource authentication and authorization. And after rehosting, OpenFrame TACF provides the similar capabilities. As part of the rehosting project, we're going to extract all the rules that are defined in the mainframe security products, and we are going to define equivalent rules in the TACF system. And we'll also discuss a little bit about the web interface and the command line interface that are provided for managing the TACF system. And as part of the demo, I'm going to show you how job submission and dataset access can be controlled in TACF for an authorized user versus unauthorized user. TACF overview. As explained before, basically TACF does the authentication and authorization of the resources. The first step is authentication. Whenever a request comes to the online or batch system, it passes the control to TACF for doing the authentication. And TACF has various mechanisms for doing the authentication. It can refer to its own internal repository called TACF database for doing the authentication, and it can also refer to the Unix password file for doing the authentication. And option 3 is not listed here, but it can also use an LDAP for doing the authentication. So once the authentication is done, the second step is authorization. And based on the rules that are defined in the TACF database, it does the resource authorization, which I'm going to demonstrate now. So let's get started with the TACF demo. Once you log on to OF admin as the root user, if you go to the TACF manager, you can look at the various options that are part of the TACF system. So the first option is users. Once you select the users, it lists all the users that are currently defined in the TACF systems. Currently you can see there are 4 users that are defined, and similarly you can look at the groups. Here, for the purpose of demo, I have created 2 groups. One is development group and other is the QA group. And you can also look at the connections, meaning how many users are present in each of the group. You can also do a sort and list all the users that belong to a particular group. And now let's look at the actual definitions for resource. So first I'm going to look at the definitions that are defined for controlling the jobs. That is the job submission. So choose the class as just jobs, and when you search it, you can see there is one profile that is defined. Once you select the profile, you can look at the details, and this profile name submit.d star means all the jobs that start with prefix D are controlled by this particular rule, and the owner of this profile is dev group. The universal access control is none, meaning nobody, including the users that belongs to development group, will not be able to submit the jobs that starts with prefix D. And now let's go to the permissions and choose the just jobs. There is only one profile present in the system. Once you select the profile, you can see this particular tab shows the permission information. The owner of this particular resource entry is the development group, and the permission type is standard. And universal access control is alter, meaning like it provides a full access. The user will be able to read, update and delete. So what I'm doing is, by default I removed the permissions for all the users, that is universal access control is none, and I'm selectively granting the permissions to the development group, and I'm giving the full access. You can also choose the time, and here I'm giving like every day and all the time, but you can also choose specific days where you would like to grant the access. Now let's go ahead and verify if this rule really works. So first I'm actually logging in as a development user. As you can see, dev1 is the username who belongs to the development group, and db extract is the job, and if you look at the job name, like it starts with D, so the rule that we defined should be applicable for this particular job. So I'm going ahead and submitting the job, and you can see the job ID is 295. And you can see this job has been submitted successfully, and you can look at the username dev1. So this is a success scenario, and now let's Take a look at the scenario where a user who belongs to the QA group is trying to submit the job. Because of the rule that is defined in the TACF, he should not be able to submit this job, and it should result in an authorization error. So I'm selecting the JCL. It starts with D, and I'm submitting the job. And here you can see the job ID. It gives some written code. Let's go and look in the spool. And the user is QA1. So if you're not familiar with a particular error code in OpenFrame, there's an option where you can use. This is an error message lookup. And if you type 17202, it says an authorization failure occurred. So because of the rule that is defined in the TACF, the user who doesn't belong to the development group is not able to submit the job. And now let's look at the similar rule where we can control the dataset access. So if you look at the dataset option, there is currently one profile that is defined. So what it says is j1gr00ap.star. It is a generic profile that is used for controlling many datasets that starts with high-level qualifier. And the owner of this group is again development group. And you can choose the audit option if you would like to audit the success and failure as well. And again, by default, I'm putting the universal access control as none. No user will be able to look at this dataset. And if you go and look at the permissions for the datasets, here I'm selectively granting the permission for this particular profile to the development group. And again, I'm granting the full access to this particular user. So any user who belongs to the development group will be able to read, write, and delete the dataset. Whereas any other user who doesn't belong to the development group will not be able to even view the dataset. So let's validate if this rule is working fine or not. So first, let's look at the success scenario where I logged in as a development user and I'm searching for the dataset. So this is a sequential file and I'm trying to look at the dataset. The access works fine. And now I'm switching to the QA user and I'm trying to look at the same dataset. So this is a dataset I would like to take a look. And when the user tries to log in, it gives an authorization failure error message. So this is how TACF controls the execution of jobs and as well as the dataset access. But you can define different resources including the transactions, terminals, utilities, and so on within the TACF. OpenFrame provides a command line interface called TACF Manager. Where when you try to log in, it asks for the user ID and password. And if you would like to list the various commands out of the TACF, you can type help and press enter. So it lists the various options that basically whatever we did from the command from the graphical user interface can also be implemented from the command line. And you can also use these command line options from a shell script that I'm going to show. So in this case, you can write a shell script for terminating the user. So the command is alt user and specify the username and execute the command revoke. And similarly, you can also list various permissions that are part of the TACF system. In TACF, all the security rules are stored in a TACF database. And in case if you want to generate any specific reports that according to your needs, you'll be able to write an SQL query and extract the information. In this example, I'm listing all the permissions that are defined in the TACF system. So once you execute this query, it's going to list all the profile names and the user ID who has access to those particular profiles. This completes the demo for TACF security. Please watch the remaining videos for the topics.